Good morning. Welcome to Sunday. We are part of a community that sits here together week in and week out. And if you're one of those people that are here regularly, welcome. If you're here for the first time or for the first time in a while, welcome. There's always a place in our circle for you, and we are glad to be together as community this morning. As we join together, we celebrate and honor the gift that is our faith tradition today. The way our faith tradition gives us peace and hope in ways that the best of all religious traditions do. We'll celebrate that, we'll honor it, we'll remember our place in it. As we do that this morning, let's gather in a way that connects us beyond my words, beyond any of our words, but ways that go deep into our centers. Let's sing our way into this circle this morning. I invite you to respond with the dark words that are before us. This is the place and now is the time. Here and now, life invites us to open our minds, to expand our hearts, to listen lovingly, to feel more deeply, to see more clearly, to love more fully. This is the place, and now is the time. Here and now, life invites us to be peacemakers, hope keepers, people of compassion. And so we strengthen our intentions. We join our hearts and minds, our spirits together as we share these words. Let's pray our intentions together. We open to the sacredness at the heart of all, called by many names. We open to deep mystery we trust to be love. May we be faithful to the vision of building heaven on earth, that there be daily bread to nourish all hunger, that we experience forgiveness for the we have done, just as we forgive those who hurt us. May we not feel abandoned in hard times, but find the strength to meet each moment and the wisdom to walk in the light of deep gratitude. For the light of love is with us, now and forever. Amen. We light this candle as we do each and every time we gather. And this light reminds us of the light of the Spirit that is within each of us, around us, among us. The light that has been before our time, through each of our journeys, and remains long after. We recognize this light that is the light of the Spirit through which we all see it through different windows. That we might see that light in one way while others see it another, and yet we all gaze upon that same light of Spirit within us and around us all. As we celebrate that gift to humanity, that gift that we take up and share as the light of Spirit, may it be at our center, not only in this moment, but in each and every moment. Our time for all ages is a time that I invite anyone to come and sit with me here on the carpet. And I have a story to share today, so let's see who wants to hear the stories. And you know what? Even if we don't come to the carpet, we can listen wherever we're at. You came. I have a book called The Golden Rule. And I like this story. And I'm glad you came to the carpet because there's way more pictures here than that are on the screen today. So you lucked out. A boy and his grandfather stood on a city sidewalk looking up at the words printed on a billboard. "Grandpa, what does that say?" the boy asked. "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." People all over the world call those words the Golden Rule. What does it mean? The boy wanted to know. And why is it golden? It means this: treat people the way you would like to be treated. It's golden because it's so valuable, and a way of living your life that's so simple, it shines. Grandfather led the boy to another billboard farther down the sidewalk. Some people put the Golden Rule another way: do nothing to other people that you would not like having done to you. Either way, he said, it's a very good rule. Who's it for? The boy asked. You, me, anyone can practice the Golden Rule. A rule that's the same for children and grown-ups? The same rule? There aren't too many rules like that, you're right. Very few. And it's for people everywhere? Everywhere. Whatever their religion, people find the idea of the Golden Rule in their holy books, Grandfather said. Christianity says you should love your neighbor as you love yourself. Judaism says what is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow humans. Islam says hurt no one so that no one may hurt you. Hinduism says this is the sum of duty, to do nothing to others which would cause them pain. Buddhism says do not do to others what would hurt you. And the Shawnee tribe says do not kill or injure your neighbor, for it is not he or she that you injure yourself. The boy and his grandfather sat on a park bench. So, Grandpa, how can I start practicing this Golden Rule? You begin by using your imagination. My imagination? How? You imagine how someone else feels. For instance, a new child who is joining your class. How do you think that boy or girl is feeling? Oh, new kids always look scared. Would you be scared if it was you? Oh, yes. What would make you feel better? If someone smiled at me. So, to practice the Golden Rule, you would smile at the new kid? You've got it. I bet you can think of other ways you'd like to be treated and ways you wouldn't want to be treated. How do you feel when you're teased or bullied? Sad. Yeah. Mad. Yes. Small. I feel small. Sad, mad, small. Do you like feeling like that? No. Neither does anyone else. The boy thought for a moment about the Golden Rule. I see. There are lots of things I can do. I should tell the truth because I don't like being lied to. I want people to listen to me, so I should listen to other people. When I'm sick or when I'm tired, sometimes I need help, so I should offer my help to those who need it. You are really getting the idea of this, Grandfather nodded. The boy looked at his grandfather, Practicing the golden rule seems like it can be hard. I said it was simple, said the grandfather. I didn't say it would always be easy. Grandpa, the boy said, the golden rule is a very big thing, isn't it? Very big. And very small. And very old. It's been around for thousands of years. Thousands of years? Well, then I don't think everyone is practicing the way they should do it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many problems between people and between countries. You're right, my boy. I wonder how things would change if everyone lived by the golden rule. I think people would be nicer, kinder. I think they'd act better toward their families and friends and even strangers. What if countries lived by the golden rule? Grandfather asked. Well, then people wouldn't want to hurt each other because they don't like being hurt. Maybe there wouldn't be any wars. Oh, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? Wonderful. But you can't make everyone in the world practice the golden rule. There's only one person you can ask to do that. Me? You. It begins with you. That's the end. Junaid and I are going to share two readings today that in the same vein that the golden rule is shared in many traditions, so much of our spiritual wisdom is shared among different religious traditions around the world. And today we'll explore one of those. And so it's not a mistake, and you're not hearing an echo, but we might be hearing some wisdom that spans between so many different places and cultures and people. The first of those readings is from our Christian tradition, from the Gospel of Matthew in chapter 25. The ruler will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed, take your inheritance, the domain prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then those people will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you? Thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger, invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" And the ruler will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." This is a teaching passed down to us from the first century Jesus tradition. May we find wisdom for our living.
Allah the Exalted will say on the day of resurrection, O son of Adam, I was sick, but you did not visit me. O son of Adam, I asked you for food, but you did not feed me. O son of Adam, I asked you for a drink, but you did not provide for me. He will say, O my Lord, how can I visit you when you are the Lord of all the worlds? How can I feed you when you are the Lord of all the worlds? And how can I give you a drink when you are the Lord of all the worlds? Allah will say, did you not know that my servant was sick and you did not visit him? And had you visited him, you would have found me with him. Did you not know that my servant asked you for food, but you did not feed him? And had you fed him, you would have found me with him. And did you not know my servant asked you for a drink, but you did not provide for him? And had you given it to him, you would have found me with him. This is a passage passed down to us from the 7th century Muslim tradition. Wisdom for our living. My mother recently asked me if I was fine. She was concerned about news of backlash against Muslim communities in the wake of yet another terrorist attack that sought to paint all Muslims with the same brush. This, of course, includes myself and Rochelle's charming husband, Umar, whose beautiful baby we jointly welcomed in this church. So many blasts have taken place in my home city of Lahore that I have lost count. My sister actually witnessed one from a distance. Due to my work on Islamic law and same-sex unions, I would not be safe in Dubai, where I grew up in the 80s. And where gay men have been subjected to forced hormone therapy. I do not go to conferences in the United States either. I told Mom I was in the safest place on earth. Canada is my sanctuary. I fell in love with her people the day I set foot at the Calgary International Airport in the summer of 2000. I had missed my connecting flight to Edmonton and was quite concerned about having to spend my limited amount of dollars on another flight. Yet, with a smile on her face, an older lady with a cowboy hat told me I needn't worry about that, and since that day, I did not have to worry about much. I have been protected by the love of the wonderful people who have become my family and friends in this city. I live next to an amazing neighbor who has helped me in several of my most difficult of times. He brought me to church, of which I have been part of, off and on, for several years now. It is here Anne McCracken nudged me to write, and since then I haven't looked back. Nancy shepherded me towards a wonderful baby welcoming ceremony. I have even performed a Muslim funeral at this church. With my allies in interfaith circles, I have been able to promote Universalist Muslims, a fledgling group that fully affirms religiously plural, gender equal, and LGBT affirming safe spaces. We are trying very hard to offer an expansive vision of Islam, much like the work of our very own Nancy Steves and Chris New in the United Church. I fully acknowledge that the Quran, like any religious ancient text, is imbued with peculiarities and contradictions of its own. For as in the Star Wars movie, it can be wielded for the light side or the dark side of the Force. There are texts that condone violence, and there are texts which condemn it. The Quran can be used to stoke supremacism or promote pluralism. Indeed, as the Prophet's cousin and the fourth caliph said, "The book is silent, for it is us who speak." Under the present trying times, when one extremist group after another rears its ugly head, be it the Taliban or Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram or Al-Shabaab, or the most recent incarnation, ISIS, we refuse to let go of this faith. We cannot in good conscience leave, for religion is too powerful a tool to be left to the hands of hateful ideologues, of which there is no dearth in this world. We choose to stay, to offer hope and inspiration, to facilitate ease and comfort, to show a path for an all-inclusive Islam. For us, faith is not about mindless religious rituals or rigid laws, but about being at peace with ourselves. For us, the uncompromising concept of Tawheed, oneness, is about embracing our unity in diversity. That all of us, gay and straight, religious and atheist, white and colored, beautifully colored, are all part of one body. And if one part of it aches, the rest of the body suffers. We fully embrace the Prophet's teaching that echoes Matthew 25, which shows Allah as being within the hungry, the thirsty, and the sick, and which teaches that we find Allah by caring for the most vulnerable and the poor. We fully affirm the Quranic message that those who are unmindful of their prayers are those who withhold small acts of kindnesses. Tawheed, oneness, warns us against fragmentation that arises out of fear. I know Pakistanis gave into fear and so poorly treated Hindus, Christians, Ahmadis, and Shias. I know Pakistani provinces refused refugees when the army bombed the Taliban, out of the fear that the Taliban would come in. But I also know the immense faith my late grandmother, may her memory be blessed, had in the white people, whom she had heard through me on long-distance telephone. She knew Rob was keeping me safe, and she would often tell me to come to this church. She would say Jesus also belongs to Muslims, and that prayers are heard in different houses of Allah. Like her, I have full faith in my fellow Canadians. We are not strong because we have a large army or because of our tremendous resources. For Pakistan surely has a large army. We even have nukes. We are strong where Pakistan is weak, for we refuse to give in to hate. We stand by one another in the darkest of times and in the most pressing of situations. the way Canadians refuse to give into hysteria as they do in other countries, the way we rose up for a woman who wasn't even a citizen, for a niqab, which is even discouraged in Muslim rituals like the daily prayer and the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca, solely on the basis of freedom of choice. It speaks of the immense reservoirs of Canadian strength, the way Cold Lake citizens came out to remove the mosque graffiti, the way that they put hate mongers and self-serving politicians in place. All of this makes me proud and safe to say, Mama, do not worry, for I live in a place where my people follow that ancient piece of wisdom echoed by Muhammad and uttered by Jesus in Aramaic over 2,000 years ago. Hiwalakum, love one another.
We thank you, Junaid, for offering and taking us up on our invitation to speak today. Junaid has such respect within this community as an author, a teacher, an activist, and it's always a gift to hear your words and your perspective. I think for many of us, the days since last Friday have been difficult. Not only because there's violence in the world, although that's a part of it, but because of the reaction that we've heard to that violence. Reaction of hatred and exclusion, reaction of fear. And it's language and rhetoric like we've heard in the past 8 or 9 days that helps us both evaluate our faithful responses, but also to wonder what we will do to give word, voice, and action to our faithful responses. Although there might be many political, financial, and logistic reasons for citizens to reject the influx, for instance, of global refugees, there are absolutely no theological ones. There are 0 spiritual reasons. It may be inconvenient, uncomfortable, and extremely hard, but the teaching of Jesus, of the Jesus tradition, as well as the teachings of so many traditions, offer a countercultural life decision. Care for these people. The poor, the homeless, the sick, the imprisoned, the persecuted, the downtrodden, the oppressed. And that seems foolish even saying it. Because for many of us that have been part of the tradition, some of us since our baptisms as wee babies, we've known that that's been the story of Jesus. to love your neighbor, to welcome the oppressed, to sit down with those with whom society pushes to the sides. And yet, we continue to speak it and preach it because maybe we need reminding, but also we need strengthening in order to bring who we are, the values we hold, to a city, to a province, to a country who desperately needs it. Because if we don't stand up to the rhetoric and fear when we hear it, and if we get taken in by the language of fear and insecurity, then we are ignoring and misinterpreting and even blatantly rejecting our founder's example of compassion and caring for the least of this world. The whole basis of love on which his teachings are founded. Whether we find it easy, popular, or not, if we're going to call ourselves ethically, morally, spiritually based on his alternative way, then it means that we're casting our lot with the world's most abused, hurt, helpless, exploited, and destitute. As I've read the paper and heard news reports in this week that move to instill fear and hatred and distrust, some of it is quite blatant and it's right there. But it's also helpful to realize the subtle ways in which we're tempted to demonize the innocent and falsely accuse them of being violent and evil and dangerous. It's amazing to me how much we've been provided with an infinite, sometimes even logical sounding amount of excuses to do nothing. To withhold the love that's ours to give. It's rooted in the idea that we must serve ourselves first and make sure we're okay, that we are safe, that we are thriving, and then, if we've accomplished those goals, we might turn our attention to others. But alas, the radical thing about our spiritual roots and the radical thing about the teachings of Jesus are that he said exactly the opposite. The last are first, the first are last. If someone asks for your coat, we'll offer them our shirt too. When talking about sharing our life, our love, our generosity, we don't even wait to be asked. The prodigal father teaches us that we don't wait for the begging to commence. We run. We run to the opportunity to welcome and to celebrate and to help. So I imagine sometimes what Jesus' what ministry would be like if it were limited based on the conditions of comfort and security. There wouldn't be any traveling through Samaria because it's too hazardous. There'd be no interacting with foreigners because it's too dangerous. There'd be no helping strangers, too risky. No healing the sick, it's unsafe and unsanitary. No attracting crowds because that's insecure. No public speaking, it's too unprotected. No giving to the poor, too wasteful. No interacting with outcasts because it's too socially unacceptable. There would be no disciples because how could you trust them? There'd be no generosity, it's too wasteful. No grace, it's too weak. There'd be no forgiveness, it's too soft. If Jesus used the same stipulations for love that we hear being talked about, the gospel would never have existed. But most of all, because every single experience that the stories of Jesus portray require risk and sacrifice and vulnerability. And instead of being fueled by fear, Jesus, above all, was fueled by something else. He was fueled by hope. And he said, if you've lost hope, you've lost everything. Not in so many words. It's little glimpses of that hope that I think bring us right back to the place that is the core and center of our spiritual tradition. And it's glimpses like the one that we're going to show right now that give me a sense that we find ways to hope regardless. And we use whatever's around us to do it. In our Christian scriptures, the phrase, "be not afraid," appears so many times in the Hebrew and Christian writings, it's difficult to count them, but my best guess is in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek iterations of "be not afraid," it appears 130 times around. What is that saying? And I think it's crucial here that we recognize and interpret it responsibly. The phrase "be not afraid" in these contexts is not the denial of an emotion. Be not afraid doesn't mean to ignore your gut, your inner sense of wellness or well-being. It doesn't say don't feel. It doesn't say ignore your better judgment and be careless and reckless and put yourself in harm's way for no reason. We know that our most ancient brain function way down here is there to help us survive, to face it or flee it. But we're more than our most basic brain function. Be not afraid is saying, do not become fear. Be not afraid. Do not let fear dictate your decisions. Do not let fear become your default position. Do not think and act from a place of fear. Do not let fear control your behavior and alter your view of others or the world. Do not be fear. One of the worst things spirituality can become is an exercise in making ourselves feel comfortable and secure. It's one of its purposes. It does comfort us. But when our spirituality becomes only that, and when it surrounds us only with people just like us, we are at risk of being part of a spirituality that is passive, inactive, lame, and useless. We're compelled to have a similar mentality as our founder and bravely embrace being fueled by hope. The faithful solution to any issue that we face, to any problem facing our community, our congregation, our city, our world, refugee crisis included, isn't going to be the easiest or most efficient or most plausible or most popular, but it should be the most loving. It should be the action that is the most courageously compassionate that we can dream of. And we know from the stories we've been told in this tradition that it's going to cost us to do that. It's going to cost us our wealth and our comfort. It's going to cost us our time. It'll be a risk and sacrifice and probably change the way that we need to live and relate to one another. To open our doors and our windows to our neighbors that if we didn't, we'd wonder and be fearful of. But isn't this what loving our neighbors as ourselves means? Isn't that what it means to love extravagantly and courageously? The questions, I think, before us, 9 days out, of this one particular act in our world is how will we bear witness within our communities and families to what our spiritual and best selves call us to? What will we do to counter our culture with love and hope? In what ways will we act together to make hope the stronger and more compelling story? What will we do to find flowers that protect us against guns? And so with my brother, I say, let us love one another. And in the spirit of all that is good and kind and holy, we say amen. We take the light of who we are. We take the light of our tradition. We take the love that we've been taught in our tradition, and we give it. We spread it. We make it appear in so many different forms through our days and through our weeks. May we be inspired by this light to make it shine in new places, to take the light of hope and the light of peace wherever we go and light it again.